Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something totally fascinating, the analog soul. You know, when a massive event like, say, a papal visit completely takes over a city, our eyes naturally go straight to the massive, highly produced digital spectacle of it all. But today, we're going to look a little closer. We're getting right down to street level to see how the warm, deeply analog heart of Spain persists, adapts, and actually thrives right in the absolute middle of a high-tech frenzy. Let's get into it.
Okay, to really wrap our heads around the local experience here, I want you to picture this. You wake up, stretch, and walk into your living room to start your day, but it's been totally rearranged, and not by you. Heavy, cold metal security barriers are literally slicing right through the middle of the room. Armored motorcades are just rolling by, their engines humming with this low, steady threat. How would you react? Would you leave? Hide out in the bedroom? Well, for the locals in Spain during these massive spectacles, this isn't just some wild metaphor. This is a jarring physical reality, dropped right smack into the middle of their centuries-old stone plazas.
So, to make sense of how they handle that, we have to talk about this core concept, the shared living room. In Spanish culture, a historic public plaza isn't just, a sidewalk you pass through to get to work. It actually functions as a communal living space. It's an extension of the private home. It's where the neighborhood gathers, where casual gossip happens, and where everyday life unfolds. So when a global religious spectacle rolls into town, it is quite literally colliding with the locals' living room. The grand event and the mundane everyday are suddenly forced to share the exact same physical space.
And man, you've got this wild visual tension going on. Just look at the divide. On one side, you have the imposing official event, heavy metal security fences and armored vehicles completely carving up the plaza. But then, look at what's happening literally inches away on the other side of that cold metal. You've got locals sitting at outdoor terraces, calmly sipping their morning café con leche, reading the newspaper and chatting with friends like absolutely nothing has changed. It's this fierce, quiet determination to defend their daily rituals. They're reclaiming their territory through these small, totally defiant acts of normalcy.
And you know what's crazy? This tension doesn't just stay on ground level. If you look up from the stone plazas to the apartments above, you see what the sources so beautifully call a patchwork of private lives on public display. The balconies basically turn into a vertical extension of the streets below. Because these residents' private homes have suddenly, without warning, become part of the public stage for a massive international broadcast, the balconies end up telling their own incredible story of coexistence.
It is just this beautiful, almost chaotic harmony. Hanging proudly from the railings, you have these formal, sacred tributes, intricately embroidered cloths and papal banners put up specifically to honor the official visit. But then right next to them, literally right next to them, is Tuesday's laundry, just hanging out to dry in the sun. The extraordinary global spectacle is layered directly on top of the most mundane, intimate domestic routines. It's like the spectacle doesn't erase the human presence at all, it just kind of frames it.
All right, so we've talked about what this looks like, but what does it sound like? Because this clash of the extraordinary and the ordinary isn't just visual. The soundscape of a papal visit in Spain is a complete study in contrasts. It creates what is essentially a sacred and secular symphony, and they are playing at the exact same time. It's this heavy auditory tension that completely blankets the city. The really crucial point here is how these two soundtracks interact with each other. On the one hand, you've got the official soundtrack, right? The disciplined, rhythmic, sweeping waves of international pilgrims chanting in perfect unison. It's a steady, incredibly powerful sound. But just steps away from those main thoroughfares, competing directly with those chants, is the vibrant, natural noise of the city. You hear the lively, chaotic clatter of plates in bustling tapas bars, the overlapping chatter of friends catching up, a sudden shout from a street vendor. The local residents are absolutely not going to let a global broadcast silence their normal, everyday rhythms.
But honestly, dealing with all that competing noise can get pretty exhausting. So what do the locals do? They find sanctuary. By ducking into these quieter side street taverns, they make a conscious choice to step completely away from the digital frenzy and the massive crowds. They get to maintain their own slower personal pace. They preserve their daily rituals, just catching their breath over a cold caña and a little bowl of olives. It acts as an acoustic sanctuary where that sacred symphony finally fades into the background and the familiar, comforting clatter of plates takes over again. They navigate the whole event entirely on their own terms. And that brings us to the real heart of our explainer today, the analog soul. A papal visit today is obviously a highly digital spectacle. I mean, it's driven by live streams, GPS routing, and real-time social media updates for millions of people worldwide. But despite all of that shiny new tech, Spain's core navigation and social fabric remain deeply, stubbornly analog. This analog soul is that resilient culture that grounds a high-tech event in tangible, grassroots human experience. It is a fierce insistence on connection way beyond the screen.
To really picture this, you can literally see the generational and technological friction playing out simultaneously on the sidewalk. On one hand, you have grandchildren deeply embedded in the digital frenzy, broadcasting real-time live streams of the crowds on their glowing smartphones. But sitting right beside them, you have grandmothers holding up vintage black and white printed photos from past papal visits, physically tracing the memories with their fingers. It is such a stunning, warm contrast between this fleeting, real-time digital consumption and anchoring the present moment in a shared physical history.
And hey, this analog soul thing, it is incredibly practical, especially when you're trying to get around a city chopped up by security barriers. Instead of relying on digital maps or live stream traffic updates, which might be wrong anyway, locals rely on grassroots navigation. They trade tactical tips at market stalls. They literally hand over personalized, hand-drawn shortcuts on scraps of paper. They use physical, printed maps to figure out how to bypass the fences, and they rely entirely on face-to-face verbal advice about which streets are actually open. They are outmaneuvering the digital frenzy just by prioritizing human connection over technology.
There's a quote from our sources that just completely nails this whole phenomenon. Technology serves life, not the other way around. I absolutely love that. The analog soul is really a form of grassroots urban resilience. It proves, without a doubt, that human connection, local street smarts, and face-to-face interaction can totally withstand the overwhelming pressure of a massive digital broadcast. The locals use these low-tech methods to assert their own agency, making sure that their practical physical world keeps them grounded.
So when you step back and look at the whole shebang, what we're really seeing is a magnificent collage of coexistence. The grand spectacle of the event doesn't rewrite the story of daily life in Spain. It definitely doesn't erase the local identity. Instead, it just layers itself right onto the existing rhythms, the colors, and the sounds of the city. The barriers, the chants, the live streams, they all just mix right in with the café con leche, the tapas bars, and the hand-drawn maps. And through all of that beautiful chaos, the city's pulse remains steady, it remains warm, and it remains unmistakably human.
So, to wrap things up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. We live in a world that is just increasingly hyper-connected, right? Grand digital spectacles are constantly demanding our attention and infiltrating our personal spaces. So, the next time a digital frenzy threatens to rearrange your own shared living room, whether that's your actual house, your community, or just your daily routine, how will you cultivate your own analog soul? How are you going to prioritize human connection and physical presence over all that digital noise? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive into Spain's resilient street life gave you some great food for thought. See you next time.